All right, let's kick this off. All right, welcome to BoneChat number 55. And today we have John Rizzo with Abanza. Uh, Clever little startup in the sports medicine area that's got I call it a better tibial tunnel fixation, but that's just the beginning of what they're doing. And I'm going to turn it over to John. Mike, sure.
Thank you very much, Mark. Everyone.
Either way.
Um, Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
So after I told Tiger after I set up my slides, I since watched Ted Bird's talk on anatomy of a pitch and mastering the pitch deck. So forgive the errors. I'm going to improve it. But this is a little bit about the company and the product. So obviously a very busy slide, but it lets you know that we are a startup, but we actually have a lot of people involved. This company actually started in 2017 in Spain, headquartered in Pamplona. We've got all of our R&D, quality, engineering, all that product development work is done in Spain. And then I started the US business earlier this year. And this is my team on the left. We're based at least right now in Orlando, Florida. We just incorporated in Orlando or in Florida, and we're excited to hit the ground running. So getting right into it, what Abanza is about is in the soft tissue repair market is resolving unresolved problems that have to do right now with ACL, but really throughout the soft tissue market. There are high rates of failure in ACL, meniscal root, rotator cuff. 70% plus ACL patients develop some type of osteoarthritis during a lifetime. A lot of argument is that it's due to some of that residual displacement and windshield washer effect of the graft. And there are lack of specific solutions for patients with poor bone quality. And there's an inability to adjust or retension those soft tissues repairs once fixed. So we resolve that because we use a unique biplanar soft tissue fixation, which is independent of bone quality. We allow for adjustable tensioning, which is super important. Another problem that, and it's related, is that the inherently weaker tibial bone lacks mechanically sound fixation. So many surgeons are so concerned with this that they're using two devices in the tibia. They're backing up or using supplementary fixation. So they're using a second anchor device, which adds OR time as well as cost to the procedure. Washer cap will eliminate this. So we talk about, what's new and what's different. Well, we're not just a little bit new. The current technology for soft tissue fixation is outdated. It's 40-year-old inline technology. And really, if you're using inline technology with soft tissue pulling in the same direction, mechanically it doesn't make a lot of sense. So what we've done is created a device that uses both cortical fixation and cancellous fixation in a cross-planar or biplanar method, which eliminates that poor bone quality as far in the cancellous bone. So we have no dependence on that. So another busy slide. Now I'm gonna make this one better, but most importantly, first thing I'll point to is the upper right-hand corner, where you see that Abanza washer cap has over 800 or around 860 newtons of pull-out strength. It far exceeds everything else on the market, but that's less important because much beyond 500 newtons is kind of irrelevant. So to be honest with you, but it certainly shows nice. But on the bottom of the screen on the right, you'll see that our residual displacement is 0.6 millimeters, which is an order of magnitude. Really, it's 10x better than some of the other devices on the market. And so this is where we really are game changing, and it makes a big difference. So using the same testing protocols that these other companies have used, we've demonstrated this over and over again on the benchtop. So
John,
where
can
are
I
we
ask,
now? Yes.
just to back up on the last one, the residual displacement, which what is that?
So it's through cyclic loading between say up to 250 newtons and 500 cyclic loads placed on the implant with soft tissue. What happens is you get with these other devices, you're getting residual displacement that far exceeds 2.5 millimeters in most cases. And that is kind of the line of demarcation in the literature that states that you're going to have a subclinical failure. You're going to end up with some windshield washer effect, tunnel widening, which leads to osteoarthritis, and really which leads to enough laxity that they're failing a simple anterior drawer test or Lockman test. So what you set out to do to repair is the laxity in the knee. And if you have residual displacement, while it may be tight at time of or time zero, over the first year to 2 years, there's significant loosening that happens, especially when you've got an inline screw, which doesn't really provide a locking mechanism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was part of my question. When the graft is healing and losing strength initially, does that add to that laxity?
No, I don't think that any of this really affects. I mean, the graft. If you harvest a graft at 2 weeks, it's actually weaker than at time zero, because it needs to you need to recreate blood supply and get nutrients to that graft. So you really the benefit is when the patient gets back to sport and normal activities of daily living when they're really putting load on that graft.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're really not just a product. It's not just washer cap, the ACL tibial fixation. That's just our first device that's FDA cleared. This is a portfolio play, and it basically uses the same technology, the same concept. But what we can do now is we're really doing one half of one procedure in tibial fixation only on an ACL. A year from now, when all these other devices are approved, we will have 45 to 50 different procedures that we'll be able to address. So the growth opportunity is significant. And we already have our second product, the Washer Cap Mini, which should be launched end of February, early March, where it's pending with the FDA now. So, title of this talk was, what we do, but it's also simple but not easy, right? So I've done this before. I've been involved in a couple of startups, actually 4 startups, and two of them we sold to Zimmer Biomet. 2013, we sold Knee Creations, the subchondroplasty procedure to Zimmer. I ran U.S. sales for that company. And then more recently, last year, we sold Embody to Zimmer for up to $275 million. So that's if we hit all the milestones. But I'm looking to reproduce the successes. And I say it's simple but not easy because it is simple. I mean, we know what to do. We know what the market is looking for. They're looking for a de-risked product. Strategics don't want to invest in R&D anymore. So what we need to do is demonstrate growth. We need to demonstrate adoption, and how do we do that? We build a focused distribution channel through independent distributors initially. We'll incentivize distributors with higher commissions and opportunities for equity. We will utilize KOLs for medical education, podium presentations, and papers. And eventually we'll build a hybrid sales team of some direct reps along with independent distributors, because there are certain markets that we simply can't penetrate. It's difficult to find good independent distributors in some markets. So direct reps are indicated in that in that situation. However, it's very expensive. It generally takes 12 to 18 months, if not longer, for a direct rep to even break even. So that's kind of where we're at. This is the plan. But right now, the challenge is identifying and gaining approvals with key IDNs and GPOs, local networks. We've got some of it going, and we'll have a lot more opportunity once we have our second product and significantly more visibility from some of these companies. So first 9 months of commercialization, we did our first case in March of this year. So far, we've got 91% of the cases are coming from repeat users. So we've got positive adoption. Also, 63% of those users have done 2 or more cases. The ASP target of $600 has been exceeded so far. So it's been stable. We're at $676 year to date. And the breakdown is that we're 64% from the ASC, 36% from the hospital outpatient. And that's important because the ASC generally has less flexibility when it comes to pricing. So that's a good scenario. Now,
John, why is the ASP so low? Have you tested 1,000 or something higher?
Yeah, well, we have, and we've sold some at list price, $975, and we're offering over 50% commissions if they can sell for over list price. So we are pushing that envelope. But what we're comparing to is the interference screw, even with a sheath. The most expensive interference screw is the J&J's product, the Interfix, and that's about $600 ASP. But most of the others are $400 or less. So we are getting a premium for this.
Got it.
The IDNs are still a challenge. I don't forget this. So far, only a little over a third of our independent distributors have participated in confirmed cases. So only 8 of the 22 distributors so far have done cases. So we've got a lot of upside. We've got some opportunity to help some people to grow their businesses. So my question for the group, or questions for the groups, are, here on the bottom, I've got multiple questions surrounding KOLs and how to set them up for whether it's fee for service, equity, royalties, or some combination. I wanted to know about consultants versus full-time employees, and what the group's feelings are, which direction to go. And Tiger and I talked about this briefly before the call. Is what's the most effective way to hire full-time employees, whether you use a recruiter or personal networking. And so let me stop there and ask the group if they've got any thoughts about the presentation or my questions.
Why don't we just go down the questions one at a time? I'll
Sure.
say, yeah. How to manage KOLs? I'm sure there's other people that have strong opinions on this. Mark and Kyle are up in that order.
So I love this product. First time I saw it 2 years ago at the Academy, because it reminded me of when I was a Boy Scout, putting in tent pegs and having them not pull out in the wind by the design. And I saw another company design a product called IOFix that utilized a very similar geometry, and it was very successful. And then also at that time, you had which you are going to, I think in Q1, have a meniscal root repair device, which could be, if you're going in to talk to your sports medicine guy and they don't have a good solution for something, that's one really good starting point.
It's also the fastest growing sports medicine procedure right now.
Wow, there you go. I mean, they're all doing ACLs that they say are not a problem. They always, nobody's killing people.
Right.
And they don't see their failures. They go somewhere else. But the pull-out strength is critical. That's why we switched to FH a long time ago, because their pull-out strength at the time was the best around. In fact, Arthrex copied it. So you're on the right track. And all of the other applications, it's just going to be exploded. I think in 2 years, this is going to be huge. we really feel lucky on the orthotechnic side of our business to be part of your team.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Mark.
So, Mark, the KOL question?
Well, KOLs are, I mean, doctors sell doctors. What was, you mean, how do you get them? I mean,
Now, how do you
How do you
manage them?
incentivize them? Yeah.
Yeah, fee for service, equity,
oh,
royalties, some combination
okay.
there.
The best advice I ever got of that was from Tony Russell. Back in the 90s, on one of the startups I was in, he said, if you can get one doctor on your advisory panel, get one. If you can get 100, get 100. He said, that's your real sales force. So that kind of where I always came from there. But the second thing he told me was, he said, you do this to the best of your ability. He said, don't pay anybody anything. He said, find young doctors that are ambitious, that want to be president of the academy. They want to be a player. They want to be recognized. They want to be somebody. And I think the next guy that I recruited was Bill Ritchie. He was just a young guy out of Wash U, and he became president. And several of the other guys, became president of AO North America. That was a great team. So again, that means you're going to go after the younger fellas as opposed to the older fellas. But you got to have one to attract the other to a certain extent. It's kind of like it's poker.
I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you.
Kyle?
So it's been a couple of years, but I think you want to be really, really careful with giving away any equity to surgeons because that can get you choked out of some reimbursement systems. I think Kaiser
Absolutely.
has a strict rule there. They'll all take royalties.
HDA is the worst, actually.
Yeah, they'll all take royalties if you offer it, but you might have a tough time with anything that's considered complete design-wise.
Right.
But maybe you have people really excited about promoting your current product because they know they're going to get a piece of a future product. So you can play that game for sure. And then onto your second bullet point, consultants versus FTEs. I'm fully biased because I work in an engineering consulting firm and we do this type of work for companies exactly like this, where you're trying to get something developed and you don't want to wash out the equity that you have, but there's pros and cons both ways. And then for sales management, I don't know the right answer for you, but I can tell you the first step would be to use this network here. There are so many people on this call and in this BoneChat network that know tons of sales leadership that can give you names out the wazoo, and we'll probably all do it for free.
That's great. Thank you.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'll add on to Kyle. So the best way to hire is use your own network first. But John and I were talking, you tend to hire or interview like-minded people. If you want to get a sampling of people that think differently, you can certainly use a recruiter, and you can pay a recruiter nothing up front if it's a contingency search. So sign a contract with a good recruiter to see resumes that are people you've never heard of before that think differently, and you can compare them to your network. That I would definitely do that.
That's good advice. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And who had a question? Bill.
Yeah, hey, just wanted to chime in. Good to be with you all today. Thanks, Tiger, for the forum, and John, great presentation. My only thing on the KOLs, I do think I agree with what Mark said. It's a really important strategic group to have involved, and then with what Kyle said in terms of kind of having that mix. My only input there would be I agree on the equity and royalties. If you can avoid that as best as possible, I think it presents a lot of issues, both with surgeon expectations as well as some unintended consequences. I've always looked at equity and royalties as well as if they're bringing some IP, then that's really reserved for surgeons that are going to be getting equity and royalty. Sometimes that's hard to avoid. But sticking to fee for service, I think, is probably the safest. And if you can engage and bring surgeons in that are willing to, kind of be a part of it without necessarily requiring that fee for service for everything they do, that's also a very safe position as well. So just real quick on the second bullet, consultants versus FTE, also really important point. And I think that it really depends strategically how you want to grow the company. The more you can pull in-house, I think is going to be to your advantage. Those are going to be people that carry the the business card and are going to really be representing your company to the fullest. So I think, in my experience being in a startup environment, in orthopedics, that's been it's been kind of a slow way to grow, but for those strategically important roles that you're focusing on, which in this case appears to be marketing and sales, kind of on the get-go. So
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, how to find and engage solid 1099s. We had a whole BoneChat discussion on that. And I remember, if you're anybody chime in, but I remember the theme was go from the top down. Once you find a customer you like, just ask the customer, who's your favorite rep, nurse, whatever, and sign the contract with them, and don't go find the 1099 first.
Right. We've done some of that. That's good advice.
Yeah. Colleen, anything to add? You've built small companies. Jeez.
Yeah, I agree on the fee for service is the best way to manage KOLs. We did that pretty successfully. Now, obviously, as a startup, that's an expensive ticket because they expect a nice hourly rate. But what I find is if you set the expectations in a contract of how many, hours a quarter that you expect, you can set it to something you can afford. And then, I find that, your KOLs actually feel like they're part of the team, right? They're engaged on a, fairly frequent basis. I think everybody already made the points about equity. For consultants versus full-time employees, I am a big believer in, making sure you have in-house the key positions that you need, whether that be marketing or sales management. If you are a little slower in the finance area, that's probably okay. But I think you'll find that over time, a really good finance professional that has knowledge in the medical device space can really add a lot of value to the team. And then, I think using your network for recruiting is also always a good first step. But, I would say that we used a lot of social media for marketing early on, and it also helped attract some KOLs because I think that surgeons are a big user of certainly LinkedIn. And then solid 1099 partners, I think, yeah, as you said, Tiger, find the customers first. But I don't know. The PEOs versus employer of record. You know what? I think you can go with the professional employer organization as long as you have good communication and you pick one that's well organized. For instance, I work for an investment bank and we use one, but they've customized a lot of stuff for us. So it doesn't feel like it's much of a sacrifice.
Yeah, good. And it's real expense. It's very expensive for the employer of record. We're finding, which is where we started, but as we grow, it becomes exponentially more expensive. So I'm talking to ADP right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. So I would talk to, 2 or 3 to see what you like. There's Insperity, there's TriNet. So there's several that are well established.
Okay. Thank you.
Great advice. I'll add 2 cents to the digital marketing question. So, and I'm kind of biased because I do a lot of digital marketing, but small companies should always do digital marketing first instead of traditional marketing. Don't have a booth, have a small presence at medical shows so you can walk around and get more done. The best poster childs are Artelon and Osteo nowadays. Artelon just killed it with digital media. We actually had Jansen Cole on BoneChat, a few months ago. They were putting out unique content on a daily basis. And it helped to build their brand. Not only did it inform people about their product, but it helped to build their brand. And then Osseo, same thing. Osseo is the same playbook. They put out different looking content. Doesn't look like a medical company, and I would just go on LinkedIn, search for Osseo, and it's Ossio. You probably know them.
I do.
Yeah, and Artelon, probably a lot of the Artelon stuff is scrubbed now because they got acquired. But I mean, boy, did they put out great content. You may be able to call Jansen and bend his ear, but the key is for digital marketing is it's free. So when you're a small company, it doesn't cost anything other than time. And the other thing it's trial and error. So you're not going to your marketing's not going to be perfect. You have to constantly put out something, see if it works, put out something, see if it works. Okay, let's do more of that. And you got to get somebody in your organization that's doing constant trial and error on a daily basis. And it's literally a secret weapon for startups because the big companies can't do it. It's the big companies can't pass their regulatory, their legal
Right.
review, their compliance reviews, and they literally can't even post. So it's a way to get noticed for $0.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
Go for
The marketing. That is such a volatile, rapidly evolving subject with social media and digital marketing, and you get so much for your money, but it requires almost like a samurai warrior of the digital world to really do it right. And I'm not going to say that older people can't do it, because they can, but you need somebody that just is voracious in learning what's new today and tomorrow. If 24 hours is the time in solar time, in digital time, it's an hour. I mean, it moves so fast. And now that we have the rapid advent and adoption of AI, it's even moving faster. I just signed a contract today to introduce a B2B, B2C AI agency to the United States, to the healthcare market. And I'm doing a symposium on January 21st, in which I'll have a panel of, I've got the chief of ortho from Kaiser Permanente, chief of cardiovascular from Cleveland Clinic, 2 or 3 other pretty well-known docs. And these are all just, mostly orthos. And they're not like 30. These guys are like usually in their 50s, but they're influencers, and they're already using AI. They don't even know how to really wield the weapon, but they know it's going to make a seminal change in everything they do. And that'll be the case in marketing too. So I just, and I can tell you this, in the last few years with VenOps, my regulatory compliance company, I've engaged heavily in LinkedIn marketing, email marketing, and so forth and so on. And the ability to get to really super busy surgeons that make almost more money than they can spend. Time is their most precious resource. It's hard to reach them, but without a social media, a digital marketing campaign that roars like a forest fire over California, you'll never get to them.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you got everything's on the phone nowadays. So everybody gets their information through their phone. So don't worry about any marketing, any digital media has to look great on your phone, has to be real easy to digest in a small screen. The other big question you have to ask, John, is are you going to do direct to surgeons or direct to patients? And it's completely different worlds.
Yeah, direct to surgeon is where we're at this point.
Okay.
I don't think we have a play for direct to patient yet.
I agree. Yeah. One of the things I learned from who was it? Treese, was that direct to consumer only works when the patient can diagnose themselves. But if you tear your ACL, you have no idea how it's going to be fixed. It's black magic. So you don't even know what to search for on the internet.
Right. Yep. Good point.
What other questions haven't we hit?
I think we touched on all of them.
And how is Abanza funded? And it tells the foundation story from 2017 in Spain and the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So the company was kind of born out of necessity, which a lot of great products and companies often are. The founder, the CEO and founder was a soccer player, football player in Europe and Spain, as was his brother, his cousin. He has an uncle that's an orthopedic surgeon and a father that's an engineer. And so sort of all these athletes tore ACLs, and we're all told the same thing, that your career is questionable going forward. And they didn't like the answer. So as a group, they came together, started talking about solutions. So the founder's father, the engineer, really developed this technology. The orthopedic surgeon had some input, but it was a necessity. How do we make this better? Why is the failure rate for ACLs so high? What's happening, and how do we resolve it? And that's really where this technology came into play. Now,
yeah.
if we had started 5 years earlier, we would probably have a much bigger impact, because a lot of the market has gone from hamstring soft tissue ACLs to bone tendon, or to quad tendon, and the quad tendon is a shorter graft. So the quad tendon generally does not come all the way out through the tibial tunnel, so we can't use our original washer cap. But that's why we developed some of the upcoming products, which will allow us to not only do meniscal root, but also with the same device in a different size, all inside ACL with quad tendon. And that'll get us about 60% of the market for ACLs opportunity wise, because 38% is still bone tendon bone, and that's kind of out of the this product's purview. But it's that's kind of the story, long and short. And how is it funded? A lot of family office, a lot of individuals, a lot of the founders, the employees have funded this company so far. Interestingly, I started in January. We were struggling to find money, and as we started doing cases and posting on social media, the procedures and the doctors doing their first cases, it was kind of amazing. It was proof of concept, and the money has been rolling in actually of late, to the point where I've doubled my budget for 2025, because I can always use that lever to increase or I can spend more to grow faster, or you can delever and spend less, but you're going to grow slower.
Yeah, that sales growth you posted is astronomical. I mean, that's 2 or 3x a year. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, that's the plan, right? So we're on the right track. It's early days, and it's always, and I'll be honest, it's anemic the first year. I mean, we're talking $100,000 in revenue the first year, and it's really 9-10 months is what we're talking about. But it takes, but it's also the same trajectory as I've had with other companies in sports medicine. Knee Creations wasn't much different. Embody was the same. You start with doing one in the first month, and then you do one a week, and then you do start doing one a day, and then it's 2 or 3 a day, and before you know it, you're doing $1 million a month. But it's slow to ramp up to that.
And is the surgeon adoption rate, is it based on seeing early clinical results? So they do one and then watch, or
Yeah, no, that's something that we had to have in previous companies. I've seen a lot of that do one and watch, but they feel it immediately. They feel the difference in, if I've got a quote here from Dr. Narav Amin out of Southern California. Having used this device, and this was his first time, he immediately noticed the exceptional performance, eliminating residual graft laxity from the very start. You can feel the difference, and the ability to retension is, while it's less important in ACL fixation, for meniscal root, it's been identified as a tremendous advantage.
excellent. Wow.
So we're excited. We've got a lot of good stuff coming.
Wow.
So let me say something about that stability. So when I first got out of the Army and got in the orthopedic business in the 80s, I would go to 2 to 3 grand rounds and fracture conferences every week, either at UAB or at Grady, Emory, or Erlanger. And so year after year, I would always hear that first week or two of the orthopedic residents, freshman kind of lectures. And one of the things that stuck in my mind in the very beginning was year after year, I heard the same thing. It was stability, 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 stupid. That was like the first lesson that I seemed to hear. And I don't know how many other orthopedic residents heard that through the years, but it's one that stuck, at least in the South. That's what I heard over and over again. And when I went in 2009 to France to pick up the FH procedure in Toulouse, the thing that I remember about that trip was the patient's sense of proprioception post-operatively, day one, was so incredibly strong that they didn't need a brace, didn't ask for a brace. They could walk and climb stairs immediately. And another thing that procedure gave the surgeon was the ability to retension. At no point could they not stop, take everything out and start over again if they didn't like it. And so this procedure right here, which is an even better design, gives even a higher sense of stability. That's got to be something that, a surgeon's hands are going to feel immediately. So that's a great quote from Dr. Amin.
Yeah.
That's going to sell. That stability will sell, because even those doctors that are getting good results, I use that phrase kind of cynically, nobody's complaining there, they're going somewhere else.
Right.
But still, they know that a higher sense of stability is going to get them better results immediately.
Right. Yeah.
Are you seeing that patients need less bracing afterwards?
We haven't measured that yet. We don't have that much data, but that's something that we
Anecdotally, are you seeing it?
No, I haven't gotten that feedback. The feedback we've gotten is at time zero, the surgeons say, this is a rock solid repair. They can feel it when they do the anterior drawer and the Lockman, the pivot shift. They feel that this is not budging. It's not going anywhere.
Does that convey on video if you were to zoom in to the surgery site when you lock the washer in? Does that convey, or is it a torque feel?
It's not, because you see the alternative is an interference screw that's in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we haven't mentioned here is, because we're only going into the tunnel like 6 millimeters, you've got a lot more circumferential fixation or ingrowth into the graft, into the bone. So you're not, the interference screw essentially forces 2/3 of the implant against the bone, and that's where you're going to get ingrowth. And unless you have a resorbable screw, you're never going to get circumferential fixation with that as it grows in. So we have an advantage there as well. But you can't see it, to answer your question, Tiger. You really can see it. It's a feel thing. Got it.
You can see the drawer test, I guess, on the operating table, right? A little
Yeah,
bit.
and there's ways to measure that, so there's a KT1000 that you can use to measure drawer. And so we need there's some studies that we need to start doing, and we need to fund that as well.
I think you've talked to Sean Cogan, who's a BoneChat member that's got the digital measuring device for ACL tension. I was hoping there's a marriage there somehow.
There could be, that's certainly at least in a study situation.
Yeah,
That's an opportunity that we could do something. I got to get back in touch with him.
yeah, because I mean nobody's getting a hard number. It's a feel. This feels tight enough, so I'm gonna lock it in.
Yep, that's right. And once they fix it, they usually fix it with the knee flexed at some 20 to 45 degrees, and they're married to that fixation once they drive that screw up into that tunnel.
Yeah.
Not the case here, and you don't have to take everything out. All you got to do is back out the set screw, a turn and a half, and then you should be able to readjust it.
Wow, that's great.
So
Hey,
what
Doc,
about soft bone?
What?
Seems
Yeah,
like it
if
would
you
be a
got
good
soft bone, it's a
solution.
big
It would be a
deal.
really good solution for sort of, lower bone quality.
Yep.
yeah, because even bad bones got good cortex. Yeah, maybe thinner, but it's still cortex.
Correct.
Hey, Dr. Lucy, tell us your experience. I mean, you putting these things in, years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'll tell you. It's been a while, but yeah, you never really know what the end point is, and it's feel. All feel. I've done bone tendon, bone grafts. I've done the hamstrings. Even did synthetic grafts. Did extra articular repairs. I I can't, I just don't know which is the best. Late, the last segment of my career, I was doing hamstrings. Um, I know that there's no perfect spot that you can put the graft, and it's really hard to. Well, I just finding that perfect spot up in the femoral condyle to put the graft is really, a challenge.
Yeah.
I must say my folks did well, but one never knows how many go someplace else. Yeah. Again, it's feel and it's being lucky to be right on the end point in the condyle where you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other part of the procedure is the femoral side, and our assumption in this whole conversation is that you've drilled your femoral tunnel in the right place.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got instrumentation, right? With some, cannula that goes up there.
Guides, yeah.
Yeah. And it's with fluoro, I assume.
No, it's not often done with fluoro, is it, Dr. Lucy?
No, I just look at it through the scope.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Direct visualization through the scope.
Yep. But you have to find that, I haven't done one 15, 20 years, but you have to be right off the articular, the condyle and the cartilaginous surface of the bone. You have to be just within 2 or 3 millimeters of that sweet spot.
Right.
And it's hard to find it, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Did you happen to do notchplasties very often when you had a tight notch?
I sort of started to do them more routinely at the end, just because why not try to do the best you can? And if you have a notches, if you want to have the graft not being impinged at all. So that's
right. And you don't want to have to try to do the notchplasty after you got your graft in place. I've seen surgeons do that. It makes me real nervous.
Yeah.
Shaver right next to that brand new graft they put in.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah. But I'm not an expert at ACLs, I'll tell you, but I've done enough to get a feel of them. And it's been a long time. So please take that under advisement.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest challenge with meniscal roots? What problem are we solving there?
So that's like I said, it's the fastest growing sports medicine procedure. Something on the order of 30 to 40% growth year over year the past couple of years. The data is a little sketchy because it's not complete and it's moving so quickly. But it's something that hadn't been done a lot in meniscal repairs. The meniscal root is something that they've discovered more as an issue that had not been addressed, and it needs to be, because you can do a great meniscal repair, but if the root is loose, it's not gonna do anything. If the meniscus basically slides out of the way, it doesn't cushion the knee joint at all. So having a solid endpoint with the meniscal root is super important. And so what we're doing with this is we're not changing the procedure, but we're changing the fixation. So what they're doing now is they're coming out and with suture coming out through a tunnel and either tying over a button or using like one of the Arthrex anchors that they just tack in on the cortical surface. But once they implant these devices, they're fixed. They can't change the tension, and this is super important in the feedback we're getting from surgeons in meniscal root repair. It's very important to be able to adjust the tension if you need to, and most devices won't let you do that.
Yeah, it's a very technically demanding procedure, and the meniscal hoop, kind of the curve of it, maintaining that anatomical correctness,
Right, the hoop stress they call it.
Really critical to distribution of the stress around, of basically, the demand on the knee. If
Right.
you don't do it right, it's not like doing it at all.
Exactly. I've seen had a surgeon show me, CT data or moving X-ray data really was just showing how it looks great until you put load on it and it slides out of the joint.
Yep.
And so it's completely worthless.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Yeah, because you're bone on bone.
Yeah, your shock absorber's gone.
Yeah.
We developed this at Active Implants. It was a total meniscus replacement, and the little white lines around the edge are Dyneema fibers. It's like the strongest material on earth in tension.
Yeah.
It's for that very reason that Mark said it's the hoop stress.
Right. Dyneema is an ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. It's in most high strength sutures.
Yeah, it's super strong stuff. It's incredible.
Stronger than steel.
So are the meniscal patients, are they teenagers, or are they like weekend warriors in their
they're throughout. They're teenagers through weekend warriors into their 50s. Now, most surgeons won't repair a meniscus on someone over 50. I don't know if that's changed, but that was that's probably the higher end. 50, 55 is probably the high end. And it's going to depend on the patient. Are they a super active patient?
Do they just keep trimming and trimming until there's nothing left but a little rim? Yeah.
Right. If you're not active, I mean, you could certainly survive without it. I mean, in the old days, Dr. Lucy might remember that they just removed the meniscus when it was torn. Not even just partial meniscectomy. They just took the whole thing out. And what they found was that the osteoarthritis was 10, 15, 20 years down the road for sure. They're going to need a total knee. And this was they did this when they were athletes and 20 years old. So, which is probably why, the fastest growing group of total knee patients is, between 40 and 55.
Interesting. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, you're accelerating the osteoarthritis. The shock absorber is gone.
Right.
Yeah, when I was a resident, we did total meniscectomies all the time.
Yeah, that was the norm.
Yeah,
And it was probably an open procedure too.
oh yeah, and I remember when my chief, Dr. Goldner, said, I have this friend of mine in Japan, Dr. Watanabe, who's developed this scope, and we started doing this, putting this scope in people.
To the eyepiece.
Yeah, eyepiece had some sort of thing you cover the scope up with, and we had young tigers in my class like Terry Whipple and Gary Paling. They were all residents with me, so it's really we were right there in the forefront of arthroscopic surgery. Yeah.
And they thought it was crazy then, right?
Oh yeah, what are you doing? Right?
I remember
Just
I
make a
remember
little
walking in.
incision, take the meniscus out in about 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and you're done. Yeah. So I'll be your source on orthopedic history.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah,
I remember walking into the Houston clinic in 1981
sure.
with an arthroscope and hearing one doctor say, "That's ridiculous. I watched Dr. Andrews screw around for an hour and a half."
Yeah.
And he said, "I can do an arthrotomy in 30 minutes and I'm out. I'm done."
Right. That guy Andrews has no future.
That's exactly what he was.
Well, Jack Houston was
Funny.
a Dookie too, and
Yeah.
Dr. Goldner and Jack Houston used to go at it. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
They were
Good
really-
stuff.
I remember when the first shavers came out, or I heard the story that from Barry Bays at Concept that the shavers were so bad that they would just explode in the joint. And every kit had a magnet on a stick, and you'd stick the magnet in there to fish all the fragments out.
Wow.
Every surgical tray had a magnet on a stick.
Oh my God.
Yeah, get rid
Well,
of
I remember telling that doctor at the Houston clinic that although the arthrotomy was really fast, that 6 weeks in the cast for the patient afterwards was not so fast. And Dr. Andrews' patients were walking home.
Well, that's a big difference.
Well, I remember my brother had a meniscectomy. I think he was in the hospital for 3 days.
Wow.
Whatever.
Well, incredible. Well, this has been great, John.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for the opportunity, Tiger. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thanks everyone for your help and advice. It's very important.
Yeah, and so hopefully we got your questions answered, and I think you got lightning in a bottle here. I think you got something. It's like you said, it's a platform, soft tissue repair that is reversible and all over the place. It's incredible. So best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
million.
Great work.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.